And we are reading at stanza, or let's say 54. We just talked about dreams and wrote a journal about it. So this is a significant moment because Guinness has now returned from talking to Marsilian. He's going to report back to Charlemagne. And this is what he's going to tell him. So you may continue.
He tells the king, to you, whom God defend, of Saragossa, the keys I here present. I bring you also wealth to your heart's content. In 20 Sirates,
Those are the hostages.
see they be closely kept. Ooh. Valiant King Marsil said, this message sends. The caliph's absence he prays you'll not resent. This is not different. Mine own eyes saw 400,000 men, and Hubert armed, some having laced their helms, and girt with swords whose hilts were richly gemmed. Attend him for, to the seashore they went. The faith of Christ they keep not nor to accept. And for this cause that they from Marsilian fled. But ere they'd sail 4 leagues, maybe or less, black wind and storm and tempest on them fell. They were all drowned, they'll never be seen again. Had he been living, I would have had him fed. Now, as regards the Paynim king himself, believe me, sire, before a month is sped, he'll follow you to France to your own realm. There he'll receive the faith that you profess. There with joined hands to you his fealty pledge, and hold from you and thief the Spanish realm. Then said the king, the name of God be blessed. Well have you done. I shall reward you well. Throughout the host 1,000 trumpets swell. The French strike camp, their goods a sumpter set. Home to fair France, behold them all address.
All right, so Ganelon is back, and he has brought all the gifts that Marsilian had promised to give Charlemagne. And then he had the craziest story you've ever heard. It's the biggest lie. It's an epic lie. This is an epic story, so you got to have epic lies. What is the story that he told? Yes, Anna.
So it's talking about how, like, when they were on the seashore, like, all his men, like, or they're all, like, there, and they all drowned. And so that's why, like, Charlemagne doesn't need to worry about a big attack because many of his men died in the drowning.
Hey, you get that?
And he just believed them?
Yes. All 400,000 of them. When they heard that Marsilian was going to become a Christian, they disagreed. They said, we're leaving. They're walking off the job. They get in their ships to go somewhere, to leave, go back where, and they just happen to get in a storm and they all drown. So I like what Anna Gray said. What's the purpose of this lie? What's the purpose of the lie?
To make him not worry about big attack.
That's right. So now the attack will be a great surprise. In fact, the very next stanza, the army of Marsilian, those 400,000 drowned men, are all deploying around Charlemagne's army. So it's a tremendous lie. This, however, I love the way the story is written because this event is going to be duplicated in real life later in the story. So it won't be exactly the same, but in essence, it's actually going to come true. So this lie will come back and haunt Ganelon later. So good job. Where are we? We'll go to Taylor. 55.
King Charlemagne has spoiled the Spanish borders. He has taken capitals, put cities to the slaughter. Now the king says he has ended his warfare, come to fair France, the emperor turns his forces.
Okay, so literally it's a turning point in the story. He's now turning his back on Spain and is going to march back to France. And with no worries, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can keep reading.
Headed to Lance Head, Count Roland, now he courted. High on a hill rock, he displayed it abroad there. In fields all around, the French set up their quarters. Through the wide valleys, the Paynim hosts go forward, all fully armed, accounted in their corselets, their helms laced on, and their swords in the sword belt, shields on their backs, and their laces
Okay, so what we said has now come true. The army that was supposed to be drowned has now deployed around Charlemagne's army that has turned their back to Spain, is starting to leave, all except the rear guard. The rear guard is still there. All right, so the night before the battle that the emperor doesn't even know is coming. Remember, Charlemagne believes that they're going home and there's no problem. But the night before the battle starts, he has a dream. So, Owen,
Can we
read.
do 27?
We just did, I think.
Yeah, we can do 28. It's
The
time.
rear guard is still there, I think. That's what.
Yeah, well, we can do 28 because what was the last thing that the narrator said? Yeah.
It is grievous that the French have no warning, so he sympathizes with the French because they're like about to get attacked
Yeah.
out of black side.
So this reminds us of the bias of the author. We were once told, in fact, I once told you that typically the authors of these epic stories are not biased. They're very objective, but that's not the case with this book. This is more propaganda than it is, well, we know it's fiction, but it's also propaganda. All right, so dream number one. Owen's going to read about Charlemagne's first dream.
The day goes down, dark follows on the day. The emperor sleeps, the mighty Charlemagne. He dreamed he stood in Caesar's lofty gate, holding in hand his ashen lance full great. Count Ganelon takes hold of it and shakes. With such fury he wrenches it and breaks it. That high in heaven the flivers fly away. Carlin sweeps on, he sleeps and does not wake.
All right, so let's look at that first dream. These dreams are all symbolic. So the elements in the story are symbolic. First of all, he's at Sizer Gate. Sizer Gate is the pass, is the first opening of the pass through the Pyrenees. What are the Pyrenees?
Like the valleys and the mountains.
Well, the mountains of the Pyrenees, right. And Roncevaux is the valley, they can sometimes call Ronceville, is the valley right in front of the mountain pass. So Sizer Gate is the opening to the pass. And he dreamed he was standing there, holding in his hand his lance. What's a lance? Yes, a very long spear. A horseman can use it. Holding it in his hands, his lance, Count Ganelon takes hold of it, the lance, shakes it, and with such fury he wrenches it out of the hands of Charlemagne and breaks it into a million pieces. And of course, it's just a dream, so Charlemagne keeps dreaming. So let's look at those elements. Charlemagne's it's the Sizer Pass. The lance represents his military power. Probably Roland, all right? Lance. It's a long spear that cavalrymen carry. So he I don't know if you can see the front page of your book, I mean, the cover of your book. You see the
Okay,
cover?
thanks.
It looks like they are carrying lances. And so, Ganelon takes the lance away from Charlemagne, takes his military power, takes Roland, in a sense, and breaks it. Which, what do you think that's supposed to symbolize?
His army's gonna fall.
What?
His army's gonna fall.
Right, he's going to, particularly Roland's part of the army is going to be defeated, going to be broken. But fortunately, there are two dreams. Fortunately, I say that because it's the same dream in a different form. So let's look at the second dream. You want to read that, Neil? 57, yeah.
After this dream, he had another dream that in his chapel at Aix in France, he in his right arm and fifth bear set his teeth. Forth from Ardennes, he saw a leopard's feet that with brass gave his very body teeth. Then from the hall ran in a great hound and came to Carlin by gallop by from the first group. It bit the right ear clean, and to the leopard give battle with great speed.
All right, this dream is also symbolic. All right, so this dream contains basically three elements, actually four, if you count Charlemagne's arm. So, you got Charlemagne, and what happens? What happens in this dream?
The bear bites it.
The bear, and the bear represents, because I know this, because look at the bottom of the page, look at the footnote. Footnotes tell us that the bear represents who?
Ganelon.
Okay, who does the leopard represent?
Marcellus.
And who does the greyhound represent?
Roland.
Roland.
This is an allegory, right?
Right, and an allegory is a story in which the key elements are all symbolic of something else. Next summer, you're going to read, usually they read Pilgrim's Progress. Have you ever read it? Some of you have read it earlier. It's still on the list. It's the original version. But anyway, it's an allegory. So what happens? Ganelon is the bear who's biting the arm of Charlemagne. And we think the arm might represent Roland. Into the picture comes a leopard, and he's Marsilian in his army. But then there's a greyhound who comes in who fights off the leopard. That would be Roland again. So Roland is represented twice in this little allegory, not of the right arm, but also as the greyhound. So this is actually a pretty good description. There are 4 dreams in the book. So I want you to remember them. And here are the first 2. This is number 2.
Wait, the number 2 is 57?
What?
Yeah.
June number 2, 57?
Yes. And that's I'm glad that you're writing it in your book, because that would have been encouraging, because you know exactly where it is. It's right here on page 80 or 79. Number 57.
Oh, sorry. Can you, I'm sorry, I was trying to write down, stop. I was trying to write down 27 when you were talking about 28. So can you just repeat the answers to 28 and 29?
Anna Grace had a good answer. You want to remind us why that he dreamed that he told the story, the lie about the drowned men?
Oh, so Charlemagne won't worry about the army attacking.
That was to 27.
Oh, you want 28?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sympathizes with the French. On page 79, it says it is generous, or it is grievous that the French have no warning.
You said
Basically,
What page?
79.
And I like the fact that she wrote down the actual quote. And when you're dealing with literature, that's almost indisputable. You cannot dispute with what the text actually says. And so the best way to prove a point is to quote the text. And she just did that. And that's, okay, you're right. Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with that. It says it right here.
And then 29, we just did that, so I should just write down about the bear and the leopard.
Yes, right behind me. So we need to move over, maybe Celeste can read about number 58.
The night is past and clear dawn is showing. 1,000 trumpets are sounded for the procession. The emperor rides full lordly in his throne. Barons, my lord, quoth Charlemagne. Below now, these lofty passes, these narrow winding hills. Say, who shall have the rear guard now to hold them? Quoth Ganelon. I name my nephew Roland. You have no baron who can beat him for boldness. When the king heard, a stern semblance he showed him. A fiend incarnate you are indeed, he told him. Malice hath